Okay, Motor Dork.
Well, hello everyone, we are back again. Back once again with the Renegade podcasters. I'm Mike.
I'm Jim, and I think I'll try and flirt slightly less with copyright laws if I can this evening.
I'm Dave. The lawyers are listening. How are we?
Not too bad. Well, I've been quite happy this week because there's been lots of Formula One stuff going on. Well, actually, over the last couple of weeks, we've had a few livery reveals and launches and things, haven't we? And they've been back on track. So even though it's not televised and it's not an official test, Formula One is back. So this makes me happy.
This is true, and we've seen some of the. Well, I say some of the. We've seen the liveries. We haven't really seen the cars though, have we? Because this confuses the absolute hell out of me. We've sort of seen the cars, but they might as well have just painted the back of a teaspoon and shown us that.
There were some that were renders of the actual car, some that were early renders of the first mock-up that they did. Others were just the show car in the livery. But we have seen some of them pelting around a track now, and the odd promotional video of all the teams' YouTube size of, the 100 kilometres of promotional filming that they're allowed to run on controlled tyres and things like that. But the on track, bloody hell, they look good, don't they? They look different, but they look massively different. Normally in the run up to a regulation change, all the cars will look massively different. After about 3 minutes, you forget that they look different. These look quite strikingly different, and I think a little golf clap for all the livery designers this year, because putting the Husky aside, which is it's the Russian flag but just tilted a different way to last year. The Red Bull kind of is what it is. It's the Red Bull colours, but the Aston Martin, God, that looks good. The Alfa Tauri, God, that looks good. I like the Williams. I think that looks better on track than it does in the still pictures. The Ferrari looks good. I mean, how you can make a Ferrari livery look bad, but they seem to have managed it over the last few years. But God, that looks good. The Mercedes back to silver, so that's, a change is as good as a rest, so that looks good. The Alpine, blue and pink, not quite sure, but still looks strikingly different. But the McLaren, I think that's one of my favourite liveries of all time. I mean, it's just, retina burning, day glow bright orange. That, if a car that looks fast is fast, then I think a couple of quid on a McLaren driver to win a championship this year is not a bad shout. Invest at your own risk. The value of your investment may go down as well as up.
It does look good. I'm just looking at the picture of the McLaren now. I think I said this on the WhatsApp group. I wish they'd have the courage of their convictions and just make it pure papaya orange like they used to you remember in the old the test when they were still running the West livery, which was silver and grey, and
yes,
one of the most gorgeous liveries in my estimation. I'm a bit biased, but it did look good. Does look right, goes right. It was good demonstration there. They used to do their out-of-season testing in McLaren Papaya Orange, which was obviously McLaren's original colour when Bruce McLaren's name was still over the door as well. And they look fantastic. And I used to think at the time, God, it would look good if they did that. And they're almost there. All they got to do is just get rid of that little bit of blue, and we're good. We're good to go.
I like the blue. It's a modern twist on the Golf livery, which, I mean, the Golf livery from Monaco last year looked phenomenal. But the blue and the orange just seem to go together. But I think just on first glance, that McLaren is one of my favourite Formula One cars of all time, and I haven't seen it in real life or properly on track yet. It's phenomenal.
They do look good. And again, just looking at the pictures, I think I'm starting to come to the conclusion they're looking a little bit like Indy cars of old to me. I think it's a low wing at the back more than anything else that's doing it, and the fins at the front, the front wing, the pointy wing. It's looking winglets. A bit winglets. So almost IndyCar, if you remember that long back, IRL. You remember the cars when they had that falling out for a little while. It's a bit like an amalgamation of both. But the cars look far less awkward than they ever did. They've got nice long swoopy noses again, rather than horrible step broken noses and bulbous protrusions and all sorts of unpleasant looking phallic things on the front. Definitely an improvement. And if they look as good as they're going to go with all the new aerodynamic developments and things that we're undoubtedly going to talk about in the run up to the new season, then I might even start watching again. Who knows? It could be that good.
I think the low front noses looks nice. There's a bit of 93, 94 style car, 94 Williams, that kind of thing about them. They actually, if you view them side on, they're pretty much drawn with a slightly squashed protractor, but with a little hole cut out in the middle for the driver to sit in, and the front's a bit lower. It just seems to flow that bit nicer. But the rear wings look phenomenal as well. But I still haven't seen a proper rear wing up close enough to kind of see how it adjusts. And I was watching the McLaren shakedown promotional footage, and the DRS opens, but it just looks like it's not connected anywhere. It just looks like it's one piece, and then when it opens up, the gap on the side is so thin that you think it's fallen off, and then it just suddenly appears again. They do look impressive, and I think losing all the barge boards and everything that was in that random gap they left in the regulations between the front suspension and the side pods, where everybody just went nuts. They look a hell of a lot cleaner for it.
Yeah.
I think it's been the only livery we haven't properly seen at all is the Alfa Romeo, isn't it? They've kept that still in the camouflage, which looks good. And I like different liveries for testing. There's something about that, because it's just different. The black Mercedes, when it came out, I like that. Now it's gone back to the silver. I like that, and it reminds me how good the silver was, but with a bit more cyan on it this year to make it pop a bit more. But I think it's all looking good, and the fact that all the cars actually look quite different, and there's a lot of different philosophies. There's a potential for an upset or two, I think.
Yeah, the new Alfa is going to be very interesting. I was sent a picture by one of my friends who is apologies.
One of your friends who is a what?
That's my other computer. That's the one we don't talk about. I shall mute it. I know somebody who is within the team who does a certain job. I won't go into too much detail, but he sent me a press photo of his two new Chargers standing either side of the new Alfa Romeo Tonale, which I think is the new SUV thingy. And I was saying, God, these new regulations really are coming up with some different designs, aren't they? But, it's a good-looking car, actually. I'm sorry, not just trying to change the subject from Formula One. It's a good-looking thing, and I think we can probably discuss that at length at some point in the future once we know a little bit more about it. But yes, Alfa, they're the only ones we're left to see. I quite like the camo design. I think somebody could perhaps have the guts to do that one year and see what sort of unpleasantness it causes in the vision mixing department of various OBs around the world. Trying to focus on that on ultra high definition, your eyes would bleed.
I must admit, it did look a bit odd. There was one of the drivers pulling out of the garage. I think it was Bottas, but at first it was like, oh, there's nobody in it, and then you just saw the visor moving, and then it really spun you out. The fact that it was all just blended in as one, it did actually look quite good. And the camo bull livery that Red Bull ran a few years ago, there was that Twitter campaign, wasn't there? Race the camo bull, and it's like, okay, it's just different. It's I get the brand identity, and Red Bull is Red Bull, and those are the colours, but mix it up ever so slightly, or do more one-off liveries. I mean, I still think it should be part of the rules and regulations that once a year all the teams have to run a heritage livery from their past, or you pick, if you're a newer team like Haas, you would pick a livery from a different team. If Haas turned up one weekend in Buzzing Hornets Jordan yellow, and Williams turned up in Rothmans or Cannon livery, or the original white and green livery, just things like that, I think it would look pretty good. Ferrari, you might not notice actually on the basis of this year, because it's a lot more late 80s, early 90s vibe about the Ferrari. As I say, how you can really get a Ferrari livery wrong? It's just red, isn't it? But last year they managed to get it spectacularly wrong. But the red and the black, it just works so well. If only it had gold wheels or gold wheel covers.
Good point. They did manage to get it quite wrong, I think, during the early 90s when it had that horrible white stripe down the side. And I think that was a cigarette branding manufacturer-led decision. But didn't. Really
the long stripe wasn't good. The cigarette actual logo on the side was absolutely fine when it was that long stripe. Yeah, maybe not quite so much, but. But then it was odd. A white car with a red stripe down the side, a la McLaren, worked very well.
Yeah, exactly. Sort of just it did actually look like the fag packet, because the logo on the back wing, as I remember, was like the red chevron on the top of a packet of Marlboro Reds. Oh, there we go. Named them. And it did look like a long, very aerodynamic fag packet.
Other cancer-causing products are available.
Exactly. Send them this way. No, don't, please.
Flavour Town.
Well, to be fair, actually do send them our way, because we could sell them. Have you seen the price of a packet of cigarettes these days?
Yeah, isn't it like 11 or 12 quid for 20 or something?
Wept.
And you can't buy 10s anymore.
No, if you've got to commit to it properly. You can't just have 10 on a night out anymore, and that'll do. You have to have double what you would normally if you're going to commit to it. But I think if you want a premium brand of cigarettes, so you want the nice cigarettes to shove in your mouth and set fire to, it's 13, 14 quid now. It's nuts.
Oh, bloody hellfire. Does make you wonder where they're going to get all the money from once they ban them, doesn't it?
You think about the cost of it, you could lease a decent car. You might be able to get your Tonale, which definitely is going to be anglicised and called a toenail, isn't it? Everyone's going to call it a toenail.
Without a doubt.
Oh, one of them toenails. I can see it now.
Oh, I'll have one of them. Stick it on drive. Look rather good, that. Yeah, I think they're going to sell as many of those as they can make. There's quite a lot of Stelvios around, the bigger one. There's quite a few around here, actually, but then stockbroker world, they are, people are taking a bit of a risk buying them, but that does have to be said, given their reputation. I am seeing a lot more Alfas on the road again, not just the Mitos, which are gradually sort of falling apart and disappearing into the undergrowth, but the Puntos with a slightly prettier face. No, a lot of Stelvios around here, and quite a lot of the higher end. Is it the Giulia? The saloon. Yeah, the Giulia. Quite a lot of those with the big engine, because you can hear them coming from miles away. They're fantastic.
They are
things.
pretty.
I might even, after all those years of saying I'd never trust an Italian car again. My car's disgraced itself. It's got a dodgy head gasket, so it's not always true what they say. It's not always greener on the other side. Yeah,
on the Skoda.
Yeah. Apparently, it's quite common on the VR6s. A lot of American VW Atlas, which is the people carrier SUV thing that they build in the States. So yeah, it's built in the States, but it's still the same engine. Yeah, apparently quite a few of those are giving it out. So it's got the whole thing, the mayonnaise, the white smoke, the loss of coolant. Yeah, it's quite annoying, really. I'm hoping.
Is it under warranty?
It's got a Skoda aftermarket warranty, so it bloody ought to be.
I'll cross everything, even my eyes.
So that's, quite annoying, but there we go. Anyway, back to Alfas then.
So you could potentially have yourself a toenail. Now, the thing is with those, the Stelvio, which I love as a piece of design, for one of them, and as everyone who's listening, who's ever listened to us before, know we're not really SUV kind of people, generally speaking. Very, very pretty.
I was about to say, we're not SUV people, and we've long derided SUVs, but last podcast, or the podcast before, I was making some funny noises about the Aston Martin DBX. I mean, it was
you were.
The 007 or whatever it was. The sounds like James Bond, but actually isn't James Bond. But to be fair, I think that was justified, and now we're all lusting after an Alfa SUV, but it's an Alfa, so I think it's allowed, isn't it?
I think it's made the Stelvio look old, though. Yeah, and correct me if I'm wrong here. There's elements of the 159 about it with the 3 headlamp arrangement, but I think it has actually made the Stelvio look not quite so current all of a sudden.
It's not a bad looking thing, the Stelvio, even despite that. But I mean, just talking of higher end Italian SUVs, of course, we've got the Ferrari one to appear at some point this year. I guess I'm going to butcher the pronunciation. Apologies, but is it the Puro Sang or Puro Sang? I don't know. But it's the big Ferrari SUV, and it's due to appear this year. There's been quite a lot of photographs of them being snapped in various camouflage, running around bits of Maranello and other places around the world. So it's going to be quite interesting to see what they've come up with.
Yeah, again, we've said about this before, haven't we? There are means to an end as far as I think we're concerned. You need to do it to be able to make the funky stuff. I'm kind of okay with that. But I just wonder whether the same people that buy a DBX are likely to be the same people that buy a Ferrari.
Puro Sang. Tell you what, I'm going to put it into I'm going to put it into Google Translate and find out what it is. Talk amongst yourselves.
Put it into that weird TikTok voice generator that's all over.
Oh, the narrator voice.
Oh, yeah, that funny woman who pronounces everything weird.
Puro Sangue.
Puro Sang. Right.
It's starting to become Japanese.
Pure blood, isn't it?
It means thoroughbred. Let's listen to what it sounds like. Puro sangue. There you go. Puro sangue.
Puro sangue. Puro sangue.
Puro sangue.
Puro sangue.
There you go. Sorry, Italy. I apologise.
That voice actually sounded like somebody who is trying to tell you how to pronounce something in a different language. They pronounce it 3 different ways just to confuse you every time.
That's probably down to one of the speakers being slightly dodgy on the laptop as well. But yeah, it did sound a bit like that, didn't it? Yeah, puro sangue. Hang on. What was it? Puro sangue. Sangue. There you go.
It sounds like a new kind of pasta, and my apologies if that sounds like some sort of casually racist remark. It's not intended to be that way, but it doesn't sound quite right. I think it's because it sounds, in my mind, a bit like linguine.
Puro sangue. Thoroughbred pasta.
Yeah, I like the idea of that.
But I'm looking forward to seeing what they come up with. Yes, I know we're not that keen on the idea of SUVs, but if it lets them carry on making the pretty stuff as well for the rest of us who want to ogle, then carry on, have at it.
There has been a leaked picture, supposedly, from inside the factory.
With Greg Wallace.
With Greg Wallace. He'd come, fantastic, amazing.
God, blimey, it's a Ferrari. Where'd you get that from? Yes, every time you click on it, though, now, this picture, the Instagram link has gone, so somebody at Ferrari's press office has probably threatened them with a head in their bed or something.
Yeah, the pictures shouldn't be out yet, should they?
No, it does look a little bit from the pictures I've seen like a bit of a jacked up Ferrari Roma. The lights front and back look very much like that, in the same way that Porsche's Cayenne or Cayenne, whichever, looked like a 911 of the time on stilts. I suspect there's a little bit of that, but it doesn't look too jacked up, which is interesting. So, cake and eat it time for Ferrari.
There's some very familiar styling cues that you'd probably expect. Like, say, you've got the tail lamps, the Corvette-style Roma tail lamps. At the front, you've got the top part of the one, it looks right. The bottom bit, something's not quite... I just can't put my finger on it. It's a bit like, do you remember the old Volvos that had the grille below the bumper? It was sort of upside down. And it just... Although, yes, it kind of works for Romas or whatever, where you've got a slightly lower nose, not sure it works on an SUV. And then you've got the standard SUV bits, which are different coloured wheel arches and the pinched insides due to the trims at the bottom of the doors, that kind of thing, to try and make it look a bit sleeker. It's an attractive one of them.
Yeah.
There's a nice little touch where the wheel arch bulges just over the top. The wings, that is, just over the top of the wheel and the wheel arches, and that I like.
It's showing, yes, this is something slightly different, a bit more jacked up. That's the jacked up bit. The rest of it is Ferrari as you know it, almost. It was just trying to say, there you go, a nod to what it really is, but for the majority of the time, you're going to be herring around country lanes in it like everybody else would. So, yeah, interesting look.
These I think are going to be owned by footballers and possibly by people for whom this is not their second or third Ferrari, probably. It makes sense if you want to move the family around, I guess, but if you wanted to do it quietly, I suppose you'd probably use a Range Rover, and I reckon you'd probably get away with using a DBX if you wanted to, because I think there's still that element of class, and less the element of ostentatiousness of something like the Bentayga, which we have seen some interesting versions of, including those that have been, what's the correct term? Modified by Mansory and the likes.
There's another word you could use. It begins with an R, but I won't use that.
Rooshed.
Rooshed, probably. Yes,
rooshed. That's it. If you like your leather to look a little bit like a ball bag, there's your opportunity. I don't really get ruched leather. It's just, what is that about?
You're not a Mansory customer, though, are you?
Well, no. There's definitely not enough zeros behind my name, I think, to be a Mansory customer, and certainly to spend the sort of money that's required to make one of the unique versions of vehicles like the Bentayga with its... And, right, I might get shouted down for this. Forged carbon, okay. A lot of people like it. For me, it's not my thing. It kind of looks a bit like, when you get a laminate worktop and it's the black one with the silver bits crushed into it. In fact, this is what my worktop is like downstairs. At home now, I didn't do it. It looks like this forged carbon. It's not for me.
I like the sound of your worktop. I mean, I have a carbon fibre fetish, as you know, and
you would have a carbon fibre toilet if you could. In fact, we saw a carbon fibre toilet on a boat, and you got all horny over it.
I did. Well, I did when we were moving into the house, and obviously, one of the first things you do if you're moving house is A, change the locks, and B, buy a new toilet seat. And in my case, rip up all the carpet and douse the place in bleach. But it was no, we were looking at toilet seat. I nearly persuaded the missus to get a carbon fibre toilet seat, but not quite. She said it wouldn't quite go with the decor. So I think if we did. If I had my own ensuite, or if we, moved house and had a big mansion and we had his and hers bathrooms and his and hers dressing rooms, mine would definitely have a carbon fibre toilet seat. But I'm not sure on forged carbon. I think it's easier to do. If you want to DIY carbon something yourself, you just cut the carbon into little strips and blob it on with resin and blob a bit more resin on and let it dry and sand it and polish it and off you go. But for me, the part of the appeal of carbon fibre is the strength and the weight saving and what it can do compared to other materials. Whereas if you forge it, it's only as strong as the resin. I could be wrong, but I don't think there's any actual strength in it if you compare it to proper carbon.
Misses the point, really, doesn't it? And I'm just thinking about your Buck Rogers toilet. Is the problem there, though, that if you wanted the carbon fibre seat, you wouldn't be able to get a self-close one because there's not enough weight in it for it to pull itself down?
Oh, that's a good point.
Onto the top of the bowl. Good point. And you'd be in trouble with the missus because you never leave the lid down and all that sort of thing.
If I put some of the really heavy material that the F1 teams use for ballast, I forget what metal it is, but it's just this incredibly dense metal, so much so that a weight the size of a tennis ball you struggle to hold in one hand. It's so heavy and dense, but it means they can put it lower down than where they want it. So you'd have to weigh the toilet seat down with a few bits of that, wouldn't you? So your toilet seat would end up costing, I don't know, the best part of £20,000, but you'd have to weigh it down so it closed. But I'll tell you what, though, nothing gives you as much of a shock in your life, slight tangent, is when you expect a toilet seat to be soft close. And it isn't.
Oh, yes.
I don't think there's a louder noise to it. I've been in car crashes that have made less noise than closing a toilet seat that you think is soft close.
I've been flashbanged and it makes less noise than that. And when you come around, all you've got is just a noise. It's like that.
And it's usually as well when you're in a public toilet and you've just sort of dropped it like you would at home, and then it suddenly... now I've got to go out and face all the other people that are standing outside waiting to use this one. They're all now laughing, going, that's the tosser that didn't know that it wasn't a soft closed toilet.
No. Worse than that, for me, it's always when you go around to a friend's house and they've got a baby they've just put to bed. That's when it happens. And then the bang, when it drops, it sounds... Have you ever seen someone blow up a building? Or I watched the chimney at Shoreham Power Station come down. That made less noise, slightly more dust. But even so, it was just, the noise. Anyway, how did we get onto this? Carbon fibre.
Our friends at Mansory, they have a fetish, as does our colleague there, but they have a slightly different fetish for a different sort of carbon fibre than, again, our colleague does. He likes the pure version of carbon fibre rather than the chopped up and slammed together with some Yoo-hoo glue.
I wanted to hear your opinion on this, because I wonder if I'm alone as a pet trade of carbon fibre. I really quite like it as an accent. I quite like it when it's painted and you can see the weave through it. Think F40, think Zonda. I don't like raw carbon fibre as an entire body panel. So when you see a friend of mine, for example, has fitted a carbon fibre bonnet on a car, and it just reminds me of my youth when people couldn't get a bonnet, so they just had a black one, in sort of a black primer. I just can't get on with having carbon fibre body panels. I think it looks, despite being really expensive, cheap.
Not a huge fan myself, I have to confess. I do like seeing it through hinting at it, seeing it through paint. That's much nicer. Though, having said that, I'm not averse to a black painted bonnet on a car that isn't black, because it does look quite cool. Just thinking of various Fiat sports cars from the 60s and 70s. Also, a load of traffic police cars up in Cheshire, which were the first people to paint their bonnets of their Range Rovers that patrolled the M6 black, because it stopped reflection from the white bonnet coming back at their driver's eyes, so they could see where they were going. Little known fact, ladies and gentlemen. But no, I'm not a huge fan of exposed carbon fibre. It has its place, definitely, but it's not necessarily on an XR3i or something where you've got fake effect wing mirror caps or something. No.
You're going to see it on an Astra H in Arden blue or something, but with a black bonnet. It just doesn't look quite right. It's kind of okay on a period Capri or something, but it doesn't work on a Nova. It doesn't work on a Clio or something. It's just not right.
Don't get too upset with us, Mansory. Still send us your nice looking cars. We do like them, really. Honestly, we do.
I think if you're taking the idea of modifying a vehicle or improving it or mucking about with it on a monumental scale, I think you can do it far, far better. I mean, I follow Singer on Instagram, and just every single post they come up with and every single car they seem to do is just exquisite. And I do kind of half wonder how much they actually let the owners get involved. Because to be fair, I look at them all and I think, well, no way in hell could I do any better than that. So I think my brief to Singer would just be, these are the colours I like, this is what I like, but you get on with it. Don't ask me any questions. Don't ask me to do anything, because I will cock it up. I will make a complete mess of it compared to what you can do. And just whatever they seem to do, it just seems to work.
And where would you like me to leave my wheelbarrow full of cash? Just over there, would you?
Exactly. So where can I leave my deposit on this vehicle?
They are lovely things. They are absolutely gorgeous.
But functional and beautiful. They have somehow created beautiful engineering.
They have. I mean, it's a demonstration that perhaps the adage, you can't buy taste, isn't necessarily always true. I think in this case, you very much can. It will cost you a fortune, like $500,000, but money well spent, and they are fetishistic in their detail, aren't they? I mean, it's just, there isn't anything out of place on these cars. Everything is absolutely as it should be, and that's beautiful. They're like I hate to say it, I don't mean to keep bashing Mansory, but they are like the anti-Mansory, which is obviously the point Jim's making. They make things stylish, classy, tasteful, very, very expensive, but worth spending the money on if you've got it.
There's something about the joy of the engineering in it. And you hear me out with this. It reminds me a bit of Victorian stuff. And by that, I mean, if you've ever seen like the old Victorian steam engines that you have to do pumping or whatever, and the places they put them in, the old pumping stations, you look at a Victorian building or a railway arch or whatever, it's exquisitely designed with really nice brickwork, with lots of detail, with care and pride. It's not lightweight and high performance or whatever. But these things are designed, and by designed I mean designed, in a way that they don't need to be. They're not just block-built buildings like you have today, made out of concrete and tin or whatever. They've stood the test of time, and that's a testament to the quality of the building. But they look far better than they ever needed to, which is why probably so many of them have been converted into houses and flats and everything else.
Civic pride. It's almost as if that's what Singer are demonstrating, is civic pride in the engineering. Yeah, the Victorians were very proud of what they could do and showing off what the machine... I mean, this stuff was basically meant to pump sewage, but it looked absolutely awesome, and all the workings were on display. And I see exactly what you mean. I think you're absolutely right. It's lovely to see someone who takes such pride in their work that they want to tell the world about it and say, come and look at what we've given you, even if 99.9% of those looking at it will never be able to afford one. Those that can will appreciate what's gone into it.
Definitely. And if you look at Lotus as an example here, I mean, obviously they're not so expensive as a Singer, but if you look at the quality of the bits, Lotuses are fantastic cars in terms of what they do on track, their performance, but they're made of bits of old Vauxhall, for example, or whatever. They're made of bits of all kinds of everything.
The current or the older ones are or were. I think that's what they've tried to get away from with the Emira, isn't it?
Yeah, and the Emira obviously commands a much higher price tag. But to an extent, they both do the same thing, the Singer and the Lotus, except for the fact in the Singer you spend a lot more for it being as pretty as it is and being as functional as it is. It's difficult to get that kind of beauty and that kind of function together and have something that performs so well. You'd proudly, I think any petrolhead would proudly own a Singer and have it tucked in their garage or barn or living room or wherever, bedroom. Just a beautifully made, beautifully crafted thing. A piece of art, really, in terms of automotive design, redesign, refunction. And I'm a big fan of a resto mod style of development of a car. And I feel that undersells it somewhat because it's effectively a brand new car that looks like the original, incorporating a lot of original parts, but just a quality far beyond anything that Porsche could ever have imagined.
I think on the subject of just looking at it as a bit of a work of art, I mean, you'd have to drive the thing, of course, and we all say if we owned a car like that, of course you would drive it. But I think the Singer would be one of the contenders for when you arrived home in your mansion with your his and hers bathrooms and carbon fibre toilet seats everywhere. You'd want the outbuildings or the attached garage to be all full of cars and a ramp and whatever else to work on them. But the Singer's one of the cars that actually I'd like large opening doors so I could drive it into the corner of the lounge or the living room. So when you're sat there of an evening having a glass of whatever, you can just look at it in the corner. Again, I'm not sure how much the missus would appreciate that. So maybe you need his and hers living rooms or a games room or a whiskey lounge or whatever it would have to be, but it is one of those cars you could just sit there and stare at just as much as you could drive it.
You could almost photo it, adjust the contrast slightly, and use it as a piece of pop art, couldn't you? Just a simple background colour. I'm thinking sort of 80s retro, maybe Tron-esque, I don't know, background to it or something, and just have it as a piece of pop art, because in the right colours, it could be a cartoon. It's so difficult to describe, but what a fantastic bit of kit. That is modifying a car done absolutely right, isn't it? I can't think of a better way of modifying a car than that.
They also do a line of watches, which if you can't afford the eye-watering funds that you're going to need to buy one of the cars or have one of the cars made for you, you can splash out the $55,000 for one of their top-range watches. So, I mean, a bargain by comparison. But then, on the other hand, if you've got all that money, you might as well have the watch to go with it. And I'm just having a look. They're quite nice, a bit 70s retro-looking, which is obviously the sort of the market they're going for with the era they're harking back to with the 911s that they remake. But 51 grand is quite a lot for a watch, I think. I'm not sure I'd be able to spend that.
But can you imagine...
29. There you go, cheap one.
Can you imagine not paying attention in the morning when you've walked out of his bathroom with a carbon fibre toilet seat into his dressing room with a carbon fibre wardrobe and the carbon fibre watch collection tray?
Fibre wardrobe.
And you put the wrong watch on and then got in the wrong Singer. Can you imagine it if you got a couple of hours or an hour into the drive or whatever, and you realised you were wearing the Hublot or the Breitling as opposed to the Singer watch? You'd just feel awful, wouldn't you?
I'd be aghast.
Well, you'd be praying that the paparazzi weren't waiting to see you get out of the car at the other end, because otherwise your social life was completely dead.
You'd have to phone your butler and get him to bring the correct watch to you post-haste, wouldn't you?
Yes, get in the helicopter and have it delivered to my arrival, will you?
In my mind, a little scene just flashed past of pulling up at home in my Singer, and my wife going, "That's nice. What is it, an old Porsche?"
This is true.
Yes. I get the feeling that we appreciate this. I'm not entirely sure that everyone would.
Was if it's an old car, was it cheaper because it's old? Yes, dear.
Those that know. Those that don't care. That's the problem, isn't it?
Whatever you say about any of the nice things you own, my greatest fear is that when I die, my wife will sell whatever it happens to be for the price I told her I paid for it, and that's what you want to be careful about.
Tools, car parts.
That's what you need. One of those boxes on the wall, break glass in case of death. Right, here's what things are really worth. Do not sell them for anything less. It's you I'm thinking of here.
Something you just said just made me think of something. People that know would obviously care. People that don't know don't care. But when you see, and I'm sure we've spoken about this before, but when you see, and usually it's a 318 or 320D or something stupid, someone's taken the badges off and put M badges on it, or M3 badge, or an AMG badge on the back of your diesel Mercedes or whatever. People that don't know about cars won't care because it means nothing to them. The only people that it would mean anything to are petrol heads. And it's those same people that would look at it and go, "No, it's not."
Yeah. Exactly.
Why would you do it?
Missing the point. Missing the point entirely.
You're only highlighting your foolishness to the very people that you're trying to impress. It makes no sense at all.
There's a fantastic group on Facebook called Up Badge Slut Shaming, which is exactly this, and it's just people sticking stupid badges on cars, Type R badges on whatever back end of your Punto or.
To be fair, but back in the day there was. I mean, I'd tried to debadge the Golf, but then realised that suddenly worked out why they all rusted in the area around the badge, because there were two whacking great holes to hold the badge in and keep it straight. So I had to hastily put the badge back on again. But a friend's Metro, we'd originally debadged it, and then suddenly actually thought, oh no, let's just put all the badges on it. So it became a running joke that you'd buy a whatever badge from whatever manufacturer you wanted, and we'd add it to the front or the end of the back of the car. So I think it was at one point it was a Metro, Turbo from a Saab, Quattro from Audi, obviously. But I think we'd found an all-wheel. So yeah, Quattro four-wheel drive. As opposed to Quattro all-wheel drive, and then just a couple of other badges that made no sense when they all went together. Old Vauxhalls were a particularly good source of that, because was it the old the old Cavalier, wasn't it? It almost seemed to have the entire options list on the back of it. If it had ABS, that had on it.
Yeah, I remember that.
TC, electric windows, ELM, PAS. It had all the toys, so we just used to nick the badges off those and stick them on his. So more badges was the key. But to be fair, looking at the exterior of the car, I think that was kind of the running joke with the car, and the fact that it had Metro Power as a massive sticker emblazoned across the back.
There's an oxymoron.
Now that'd be because Metro.
It became famous. It was one of the most loved cars at college, more so than the kids who'd either had rich daddies or won the lottery or done whatever they did to get cars well above a 17-year-old's pay grade. They just bought something new and shiny and rather expensive and nice. Yeah, the Metro and Metro Power was held in better regard, riding as it did on a glorious set of 14-inch alloys. In gold, no less.
Oh, swish.
I seem to remember Ford went through a phase, it must be it was in the 70s, where they were very proudly sticking the word automatic on the boot, where cars were, it's particularly Granadas, because obviously they were more the sort of car, but Cortinas as well. And as a young car enthusiast, I used to spend my whole time looking inside cars to see if they're manual or automatic. It was, it's an automatic, it's got the big T thing, fantastic. And then you'd look on the boot and it would say it, automatic, quite often in that sort of italic script. I'm sure it was italic to start with, and then it became capital letters in the middle of the boot lid. Automatic. It's like, we're proud of this. Don't forget it.
Austin used to do that too, didn't they?
Yeah, it seems an odd thing to put on the boot of a car, doesn't it? Because automatics back in the day, let's face it, they weren't that good, were they?
No. Dreadful.
Weren't they a bit more aspirational though back then? I can afford to let something else do the gear changing for me. I don't sully myself so much. It's look at me, I can let somebody else take the strain. Even if it's a 3-speed horrible thing that comes out the back end of Dagenham.
That's when you used to have, what's the MPG on a manual? 52. What's the MPG on the automatic? 4.
Half.
Yes, oh dear. It's not very good, is it? What's the 0 to 60? Add 7 seconds if you have the automatic.
No, it's the other way around, isn't it? It's the flappy paddle gearbox will do it a lot quicker because the computer knows exactly where and when to change and at which point. Whereas you're sitting there going, fluffed it again. I'm 0.2 of a second behind. God.
Yeah. No, you can. You can absolutely change gear in a manual car just as quick as you can in a DSG.
No, you can't.
The only 2 caveats for that are you can only do it once and you can only do it in a hire car. You don't want to do it in your own car.
Bits will fall out of the bottom of said vehicle if you keep doing it.
I think there was actually a recall at one point for Elises and Exiges when I worked at Lotus, because some over-enthusiastic drivers were snapping the gear levers by changing gear too quickly, so we had to fit a slightly beefed up model. You thought you've got to go some, haven't you? So I tried to do it one to try and replicate it, and you had to give it such ridiculous welly to snap it, but you could do it. But it was a bit disconcerting when the gear lever came off in your hand governor.
Was that an official test you were on, or was that purely of your own volition?
Pure rage.
Out the lanes.
I didn't. Oh no, I was only sat in the car park. I just refused to believe that you could do it, and you had to be an absolute gorilla to do it. But the number of people that had managed to do it was quite worrying.
Well, it goes above and beyond. Yeah, no, it does work. Yeah, you can break these.
Yeah, you
sure about that, Mr. Bell?
No, you always need to rest in peace. We always need to. We always need to test the features of the vehicles, etc. As one of our colleagues did at work today, seeing if the active city stop worked in the car.
Didn't.
Turns out it didn't, but the less said about that, the better.
Uh-oh.
But it's taken the heat off me because he's the most recent one to have a prang in a company car. So I'm quite happy about that.
What did they test it on? It wasn't a bus or a bollard, was it? Or a person, God forbid.
Mazda 3, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a Mazda. So it was only very, very light, literally plastic bumper to plastic bumper, and the odd fog light and rear reflector fell out but was popped back in, and that was it. But it was just one of those annoying things. But he's been with us for 33 and a bit years, and it's the first bump he's had in a company vehicle, so he's doing quite well.
It's a good average.
I think he's too old now before retirement, so he'd have to work into his 80s to try and stretch that record again. So he has counted himself out, but 33 years is not a bad record, is it?
Yeah, it's a very good average, yeah.
Other stuff, just going back to badges on the back of the cars, things you don't see anymore. 16 valve badges, injection badges, because that was the other thing that used to be over everything in the 80s, didn't it? Everything had an eye on the end of it, or whatever.
Turbo.
And engine sizes. Why do they bother with any of these things?
Well, engine sizes is obviously they've had to start rethinking that. I mean, I'm thinking particularly things like Audi, who've now come up with the twin digit thing, like 3.5, 2.5, or whatever, in order to denote whereabouts your output is pegged in the whole grand scheme of things, because it doesn't mean anything anymore. And as we go towards electric vehicles, it's going to mean precisely zero, isn't it? Literally.
Oh, but they've kept that same numbering for the Audis, for the electric ones. But nothing's as confusing as the BMW badge thing, which I think only Jim understands.
Yeah, I kind of got the hang of the BMW badging system at one point. But I mean, the Ford engine badging is very easy. You've got a choice of 1 or 2. And that's it, because they pretty much only make 2 engines now. There's a 1 litre petrol and a 2 litre diesel, but they're not really making the 2 litre diesel anymore because semiconductors and because CO2. So your choice of engine is 1.
That one.
And that's it. And do you want an engine? Yes.
Yes.
Well, can I have those? The choice is, do you want an engine or not? And that's it. But it's the BMW kind of makes sense. It's it's like a points system. You get the cubic capacity of the vehicle in litres times by 10 to give you your base level, and then you add 5 for a turbo, and then you add 5 for a hybrid system.
But it's not the football balls, is it?
A 2 litre turbo with a hybrid system becomes a 30. You get 20 points for the engine, you get 5 points for the turbo, and 5 points for the hybrid.
It used to be 2002, 2 litre, 2-door. Makes sense.
Yeah, that's true. It's like UCAS points. If you talk to anyone who went to college after Wheel did, I was chatting to somebody. I think I remember needing. I forget the exact numbers now, but I think I needed 20 points to get into the university I wanted. I managed to get 9, but because they were so desperate for the cash, I got in. But then I spoke to somebody about the number of UCAS points. Oh yeah, I got 762. I was like, wow, either I'm really thick or you're massively intelligent. But it's a bit like Formula One. They just changed the point system. It used to be 10 points for a win or 9 points for a win. Now it's 25. Hence, it's made all of the point scoring systems look completely out of whack, and you end up with some very mediocre drivers having scored more points than double world champions in their career. It's a bit odd.
Well, BMW did have, again, I'm thinking back to the early 90s, they did have a bit of a porky fibbing type thing going on, where the 325 was actually a 323, or vice versa. There was a 328 that was really a 325. I don't know. I can't remember exactly.
Yeah, the 316, the 318, and the 320. I think at one point were all the same engine, just slightly detuned. Less or slightly more detuned or choked, weren't they? But again, it's almost we'll fit a restrictor. So if we squeeze the intake slightly, then you lose 2 points for that. So that's how you get from 20 to 18.
Yes, so your pecking order in the company car list was kept very much where it should be. You knew your place. So back in the old days, it was the GLS thing. Now it's whether you've got a 3 or a 0 or an 8 or a 1 at the end of your 3-digit number. I've given up trying to work it out. I do remember ages ago, back now obviously electric cars are very much on the ascendancy and are an everyday occurrence on the road. But back when they were very, very new and very exciting, I remember seeing my first Tesla sports car, the one that was basically a Lotus Elise, but with electric gubbins.
Too.
I remember doing the old car lookup thing to look up the cubic capacity and being absolutely blown away by the fact it said 0. Oh, little things.
How can it be 0?
There's 0 cubic
Witchcraft.
capacity. It is. How is it even working? But now it's the future. But I was just reading somewhere that Extreme E is now looking at ways of racing hydrogen-powered cars, which is a nice departure, and that might actually be an acknowledgement of the fact that electric isn't necessarily the whole future of motoring for us all. It gives you at least a bit of an option.
Wouldn't that be Extreme H?
Yes.
Who sounds like a wrestler.
Let's just call it Hextreme.
Tenacious D. They're getting rid of D though, aren't they? That's the problem.
Extreme.
No, I think it's quite interesting because I think they use hydrogen to actually sort of generate the electricity that they charge up the Extreme E cars with. So it seems like a natural departure. But I think that's going to be quite interesting because I think we've spoken about this many, many times before. But I still think hydrogen's got a place. It's just trying to stop it going incredibly bang every time somebody drives into it because their auto-sensing thing isn't working on the front of their car. So
that would be awkward.
It would be a little bit. Big hole in the ground. Where was the accident? Oh, it's that crater over there.
What used to be Sussex.
Yeah. The big hole in it where the Kuhlfeld Tunnel was. Which in itself is a big hole.
Anyway, and on that, what is not an explosive device for legal reasons, I think it's probably time to wrap up. So from me, Jim, it's goodbye. Take care.
From me, Mike, this is goodbye.
And from me, Dave, and my echoey shed at the bottom of the garden, goodbye. Take care. See you soon.
UK Motor Talk, a First Take Media production.